All right, good evening and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining in. It is March the 10th, 2021, and we are here live for another Q&A session with myself, Bo Manry, and my business partner, Chris Goff. Now, we really appreciate all of you that joined live for these sessions, and if you didn't get a chance to answer your question ahead of time, we will be taking live questions at the end, so feel free to ask a question at any time using the Q&A panel. Should be located right there on the bottom of your toolbar. Now, tonight we have some really great questions as always, but we also have some exciting news to share with all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Chris. Welcome, Chris.
How's it going, everyone? And yeah, so I'm playing Mr. Mom the next 2 days. So I was telling Bo, I was like, oh my, I got to get up at 5:40 in the morning to get our youngest off. But I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be good because tonight, I don't even know if I'll sleep actually, because tonight is pretty special night. And as Bo said, we have some things to share with you. Number one, we're going to give you the release date for the new REIPro coming out. So just hold on one second. We're going to get into that. But I was talking to Bobby today. It was kind of a short notice thing for him. And he was sending over me, hey, doing this, got this done, and this house under contract, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, why don't you tell people, if those of you that were on the call back in January where we had Bobby come on, I was like, hey, this would be a great opportunity to tell people, here's what you've been doing since January till today. And what tips, what things have you learned that you could share with everybody on this? So we thought we'd just take a couple of minutes to bring Bobby in here and just kind of share what he's doing. And he's been with us, REIPro, for quite some time now. And he is one of my coaching students. I will disclose that. But he's done a fantastic job. And it's pretty awesome to see, how the tool and how some education can really change and guide you down such a great road that, I've been down for years, and Bo, as an entrepreneur, has been down for years as well. So with further ado, Bobby, are you there? Can you hear us?
Hey,
how's it going, man?
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's pretty special when, somebody like me gets a email or text message from you and just kind of sharing, I get excited when you do these things. Like, it's exciting for me because, as just trying to help you, but at the same time, you're learning a lot on your own and you've got to make things happen. It's not like, get some education and a duplex shows up in your driveway tomorrow morning. No, you gotta put it into action. And I'd love for you to share, from that January standpoint to today, just some of the things that you've been doing and been able to accomplish. So I'll leave it up to you.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Chris and Bo. Well, the last time I talked to you guys on the webinar, we had some wholesale deals and some other stuff working. But, the one thing that I've learned is it takes many months for one deal to really close or get to the point where you can actually close. So a lot of the deals that I started back in October, we're just now starting to see the final steps. And, we closed 2 properties so far since January. One was a rental property and the other one was a fix and flip that we're actually going to start on this week. We actually was over there today doing some little bit of landscaping work. So that was kind of exciting because it'll be one of our first ever fix and flips other than, house hacking. But
right.
Been learning a lot, with dealing with contractors and insurance companies and coordinating, the appraisal leading up to the lender approvals and all that stuff. So it's been interesting dealing with hard money lenders, private money lenders, but it's fun because we're doing it. We've got, I know I talked to you, what was it, about a week ago? I was like, hey, I got a contract and I got another contract and then I got another contract. So it was pretty fun.
I think that's what it kind of happened for me the same way. It took me 3 months to do my first deal.
Yeah.
But then it was like a snowball almost, because you're constantly out there. You got your mailers out, you're doing the calls, you're doing things to kind of keep that going. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, wow, where'd that, I got 5 deals now under contract. Oh my gosh, now we have 18 houses we're trying to get rid of. And it's like that snowball effect when you can just constantly get out there and
Yeah.
make things happen.
Yeah. It's exciting because we actually have 4 more closings coming up in the next 2 months.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And
Well,
so
that just goes to show why you have to constantly fill that sales funnel, because
right.
you get distracted by, oh, I've got 2 under contract, but as those kind of progress through the natural chain of events, you got to keep that marketing going to keep that sales funnel filled.
Yeah, that's exactly what Chris told me yesterday. He said, you don't want that thing to dry up. I'm like, yeah, we did run another marketing campaign. I got 3 calls today. So you just have to consistent and just keep things rolling and talk to people. And, like you say, in a lot of your videos, a lot of your education is you got to connect with these owners, because you might be dealing with those people for 3 months before they finally say yes. And what was it? I don't remember when it was, but it was just a few months ago. I told you I was 1 step closer to a yes.
That's right. And now, how many are you working now? Like you put out the offers, and I know you're waiting on some contracts and so forth. Like, kind of give us an idea of that. Like, what's really going on?
Well, I mean, we have 6 properties under control right now for 2021. So contracts in hand, pending closing, or already closed. We have 2 more contracts that one property owner is in Alabama, and I sent her a seller finance. And I guess, well, actually, she's in Texas, and you know what recently has been happening in Texas with the weather. So we're pending contracts from 2 people that already agreed to the numbers. We're just waiting to get that information back. I usually DocuSign everything, but in her case, she wanted it in her hand. So we sent the stuff through the mail. And then I have 5 more properties on top of that I've already submitted cash offers for, and I'm following up with. So, we generally I usually have about 60 to 80 properties in my properties list. But what I do is I tag them with the lead statuses, and I tag them with the lead types, and I customize those in the global section of REIPro, so that I have them all organized by, these are my properties, these are pending closing, these are the ones that offers are, outstanding. And then every few days I go and I resort that list, and I just work that smaller 5 or 6 property list and just make sure I'm making those phone calls and following up.
You got to stay organized, because you can see, I think, also at keeping it organized, but the more you do it, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
But you still got to keep doing it.
Right.
Anything else? Any other things along the way that you've learned over the last few months that you'd like to share? Or if you want to be contacted, do you want to put out your contact info if anybody, wants to maybe do a deal with you or sell a house to you or something?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I got off the phone just now with George down in Miami. We actually met after the first webinar, and him and I are going to JV a few deals in Augusta, Georgia, Aiken area. So
cool.
He used to live there, actually. So he's got a lot of contacts in that area. And heck, I feel like I'm in Aiken about every couple of weeks. So anybody that wants me to, if they're out of state and they just want to work properties in South Carolina and they need somebody boots on the ground, hit me up on the email, bobby@reitactical.com, or, just call me up. My phone number, we can put that on there if we want to.
But yeah, we can.
I can put it in the chat.
And then we'll, at least if somebody's writing it down, they could write
I'll put it in the chat. Bobby at REITactical.com.
There you go.
And I mean, we actually have one of our seller finance properties is up for assignment. So if someone's looking for something in Sumter, South Carolina, that wants it on a seller finance contract, it's a good little project house. So
awesome. Hit them up. And hey, feel free. I know if you stay the whole time tonight, I'm sure you will, but feel free to jump in if you'd like to. So we're going to get moving, and because we got some cool stuff to show you, and then we got to get to the questions and so forth. And we got some really good questions I'm going to really expand on in this presentation. So you ready, Mr. B?
I am ready. So let's go with the first announcement. Everybody's been asking on all these webinars, when will REIPro be released?
Yes. So this is, like we said, going to be kind of phase one. It's coming April 1st. And last one we did, we kind of showed you a little bit of it. If you didn't make it, it's okay. We're going to show you just a little bit of it, and then we'll jump into the questions. Some really good new features coming your way. It's going to simplify so many different things. And we're excited to get it to you. So here we are this is going to be your new dashboard coming into REIPro. I think, one of the major changes that we needed to make was our menu system, and being able to really kind of get everywhere you need to be, not just from a desktop point of view, but more from a mobile point of view as well. And I know that was difficult for some people, especially on a phone, because we have a lot of people that just strictly use the phone. And so we really wanted to kind of cater and redo this in a way that was going to be a lot more mobile friendly, but at the same time, keeping it really awesome for you guys from a desktop point of view. So you'll see that left-hand menu. We have a brand new membership area. Bo's not going to show it to you because it's not ready yet. But so this membership area, what we want to do, people that are members with REIPro. Now, when you come in for a free trial, we're going to, we give you some, basically a good 10 videos in a row, but we expanded that to like 60 days worth of information that's going to come in. At the same time, for the paid members and people that are using it out of trial, we also created some more additional resources and tools for you to access, such as a rehab planner, an expense spreadsheet, things that we use in our business. And I think it's really going to help you out, some of these additional resources. And we'll keep adding resources to that membership area as we move along. The very top, one thing that, believe it or not, we actually used to have something very similar to this, is our global search box. Right now, when you come into REIPro, you see that quick lookup, right? So you want to quickly look up an address, something new. You can do that in here. That's going to be our new quick lookup. But at the same time, you want to find a property that's in one of your direct mail campaigns or in your saved property section, you're going to be able to find that address. So Bo, if you want to just maybe touch a little bit on that.
Yep. So if you are, as I just started typing 123 Main, like it's in Main Street or Main Avenue. And the very first thing it brought up was, okay, I have 123 Main Avenue, Ocean Grove, New Jersey. It is in my current property search results. It's a property I'm currently working versus 123 Main in a campaign. It's in a marketing campaign. And then everything under new address search, we're searching the 155 plus million records all throughout the United States. And this would be what you would normally think of quick lookup. You start typing in the address, you can click on one of these addresses, which will pop up that quick lookup information. And we had the ability to get to a specific address, say in a marketing campaign or in your properties area, but you had to go there first to use a search feature in that one section. Now this has really brought a global search where we can just type in what we want to. If you're looking for a buyer or a contact, you type in their name or phone number, and that will pull them up under buyers or contacts. And this, of course, is if you want to search across everything in your system as well as the main database. But if you want to specifically look for something, you can choose it down here. Okay, so if you're searching new properties by an APN or a new owner search, maybe somebody in a specific state you're looking for property, you can do that. That's still here, or you can search within a specific criteria. So quick access to pretty much everything that's going on inside of REIPro.
Yeah, I actually love this because this is just so much better. Just this one thing is like, I love it. if you, not on a big laptop, let's just say, Bo, you can actually shrink your menu just to kind of expand the big picture here. So, sometimes you get to a page where, we have a lot of information that you just need a little bit more room. You can shrink that menu system. Two analytical pieces. This will be the beginning of a lot of analytical pieces that we're going to be providing. To me, medium price here is very important. So where you see the 322,000, you want to check an area and say, okay, we always talk about C neighborhoods. Like, what does that mean? So that's really kind of that middle price point that we're looking for. And if you don't know where to start in your area, you got to kind of figure it out and thumb through and start Googling stuff. You could do that with ease right here. And you could put in multiple different locations at the same time. So right now, Bo's got, what's that, Fayette County? It's kind of just cut off for me.
Yeah, Fayette County, Georgia, as well as Spring, Texas.
But you can also just kind of manage those and add and delete, take away right from here. So you can start typing in, you can delete one of your saves here. And this is really good, working multiple different areas because, like Bobby was saying, he goes to Aiken, a couple times a month. Well, it's nice to kind of see what's going on there. And you can do that very quickly, not just from a home sales point of view, but that medium price range. And it really helps you understand kind of, especially if like I'm wholesaling, what neighborhoods and what areas should I drive? And I always tell people it's the middle price range and a little bit below. So now we can just type in these areas and quickly identify, where do we need to go? And so I do love that. That's pretty cool. The lead results, these are updated daily. So it's just kind of a quick reference that I know that there's, just over 1,200 vacant properties here. Now, of course, I could go to my lead generation and actually search those vacant properties in this area, but it's just a quick visual here as well. And then we have a brand new calendar system, and this is going to improve even from where it is today. But as you can see, Bo does a lot of testing to make sure things are functioning properly, all that good stuff.
But one of the key things, Chris, we had this suggestion, obviously from one of our members, is we always had the ability on the old to-do list to assign a task to a specific user on your team or somebody in your account. But really it was just kind of limited to that. When a lot of times you have multiple people involved in these transactions. So now you're going to have the ability to see everybody's calendar. You can see the calendars button here. You can see who's up here. You can turn calendars on and off, color code them. And then when you're actually adding an event, you can add, one or more people here who needs to take care of this or be assigned to it. Unlimited reminders as far as text, pop-ups, emails, where before we only had the ability to do 2. So there's a lot of enhanced features here, all the way to time zone correctness, no matter where you're at. So.
Yes, sounds small, but we're pretty big on to-do lists. And even Bobby's saying, hey, just even how he organizes his leads, there's other things we have to organize in our daily business. I always say pick one day a week to be your admin day. Like that's going to happen pretty much the same day. But it really does help keep you organized. And, if you're finding that first deal, but when you start getting out there and start doing more, you're going to find this to be very useful. Other cool things at the bottom, we don't have to spend a lot of time. We do have a brand new marketing section that we're going to be throwing at you. One of the big recommendations, anytime you imported a list, you'd have to click on the addresses so we could understand, okay, is that the address that you really meant, type of thing. We're going to try to auto associate all of those imports for you so you don't have to do that anymore. But we really wanted to simplify this marketing dashboard. So if I were to order postcards, all you got to do is just go to, the order button. The great thing is all of your campaigns are going to stay here. It's not going to go to an ordered campaign state. So if I come back and it's like, hey, I really want to reorder that list, that order button will turn into reorder. So you don't have to go searching, where did it go? We really wanted to keep everything right here. As you can see, he ran a skip trace report on the very first campaign. Now you can just download it right from that one spot. You don't have to go look for where's the button to download versus this, that. So we really wanted to simplify this page, and I think we did a pretty good job. Again, it's the beginning, but we took a lot of suggestions
A
from
lot of
you guys,
suggestions. Yep.
not just these pages, but multiple other pages. So anyways, there's just a few things. Get ready. April 1st, we'll be sending out more information. We'll do some good video training for you guys. So when you wake up on April 1st, you're going to go, okay, is it really April Fools? Are they fooling us?
And I was thinking that's a good day to put it out. Do we really have to put it out on that
Exactly.
day or not?
So anyways, thanks for just being a part of this. Number one, you guys are making it better, and that makes us happy. So I guess we will jump back into the Q&A. We got some really good questions.
Yes, we do.
Yes, some thorough questions. Sometimes you ask a question and it's like, oh, there's actually more to that question.
We have some of
So
those tonight.
yeah, when you answer it, it's like you just can't answer it quick, because then that basically ends up creating another question. So we're going to try to answer these the best that we can.
Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling. First question coming from Sean, pre-foreclosure. When purchasing a property subject to, how do you handle the insurance? I purchased a policy through National Real Estate Insurance Group. They only listed my LLC on the policy, so the mortgage servicer won't accept the policy. I have requested that they add the original borrower's name to the policy, but what happens if I have to make a claim and the original borrower is nowhere to be found?
Yeah. So Sean, hey, thanks for the question. This is a very good question, but I want to just kind of give you a general statement, then we'll kind of look at the specifics. So, most mortgages today are going to include taxes and insurance. It's not in every case, but most do. And because of that, instead of switching the actual insurance company, what I want to do is be named as an additional insured on the owner's policy that's actually in place. So that policy stays in place, and I would end up either making the payments, or if the mortgage company is paying those insurance payments, of course, I'm just sending the total payment to the mortgage company. So you want to especially do this in a pre-foreclosure situation. And I think that's the big thing, because now when we look at, what's going on, what's happening in this particular property is now the mortgage company, again, I would want to understand why the mortgage company is not accepting this insurance policy. Just kind of clarify that. But number two, now the mortgage company knows that the deed changed. So it's okay to, if you can put the owners on your policy to kind of smooth this out for a while, but at the end of the day, you really want to get this property sold or refinanced as quickly as possible. So just think back, when you go back to the pre-foreclosure, the best thing to do, and I don't like holding on to pre-foreclosures because of certain things. I just want to get in, fix the property up, and pretty much get out of the deal. And this is one of those that we really, really should just be added as an additional insured. And you're going to carry the same rights. You can make the payments, all of those things. They could send you the bill if it's paid outside the mortgage and so forth. So I would really want to clarify why are they rejecting the insurance, and maybe but just keep that in mind kind of moving forward.
Awesome. All right. Next one from Raw Wholesaling. As a guide for beginners, I've purchased your blueprint course for REI. Can you provide scripts for contacting buyers and sellers? It's difficult to organize a conversation with leads when there are no conversational points to follow. Thank you.
Yes, actually we do. So I thought I would share, and for those of you that may not know, but if you go to the next slide here. So I took 2 screenshots. Of course, this isn't the full script, but if you're in REIPro and you're in one of your properties that you're working, if you go to step 2 and click on phone scripts, if you look to the left here, you're going to see different phone scripts and all the questions. So that's going to help you have that conversation with the seller. It's going to help you qualify the seller and say, is this a good lead? From the buyer point of view, if you click on the buyers section of REIPro and you click add buyer button, you're actually going to get also some questions that this is exactly what we use to really qualify, especially like a lease option buyer. We do have some investor specific questions on here as well. If you're a wholesaler and you're looking for retailers. So I'm saving the information to the system inside of REIPro. So you have all the communication pieces right here. Now, if you go to the next slide, some people like it manual, like I want to print something out. So we have this property research form is what I call it in our buyer's list questionnaire form. Both of these are in REIPro. If you want to print them out manually, this is how I got started because we didn't have cool tools like this when I got started. And I had to print, I would carry like 10 of these in my car. So if I talked to someone, I could fill out the information, either buyer or seller. Also, both of these are included with the Blueprint Home Study course. It's going to be in that forms folder. So you have it in both places as well. So hopefully that's going to help you.
Awesome. Next one from Jason, wholesaling. If a seller wants to sell 2 properties in one bundle, how would you write that up? 2 different contracts to sell, or put both on one contract? And if it's on one contract, could you show an example?
Yeah. So, hey, Jason, you can do both. Okay. But let me explain the pros and the cons of doing each way. So let's just start with one contract. So obviously you're going to have both properties together. It's going to be in a package deal. One of the pros of doing this is generally when you're purchasing multiple properties from the same seller, they usually give you a better price. So that's pretty good. But more importantly, there's only one closing and the seller's going to be happy about that. The con to doing a one contract is you're going to need to find an investor looking for a package deal versus somebody, that just wants to buy one property. So keep that in mind. Now, I did my first bundle deal. I did 18 houses on one contract. And I was like, oh my gosh, who's going to buy this from me? But I knew I had a really good deal. And I called one of my previous buyers and he was like, absolutely, he took it. So obviously, you build that rapport out there. People do want to find package deals. But if you just simple percentage, you're going to find more investors that just buy one house at a time.
Mm.
So let's talk about separate contracts. Okay. So this is going to give you the ability to sell them to 2 different investors, right? So although the seller's assuming the closing date's going to be on or about the same date for both properties, you could sell one in a week and sell the other one within that given time that you have as a closing date. So one of, obviously that's one of the pros here is, Chris could buy one property and Bo could buy the other property. And that's always going to lead into a larger pool of buyers when you have an investor that's just looking for one property. The con with this is that you're going to have 2 closings. And I'm going to tell you, the seller may not like that. Okay. Now, if you're upfront with the seller about it, not a big deal. But if the seller's got to sign paperwork for 2 different closings, that's also, think about this, it's going to eat into closing cost, and that closing cost is going to eat into your profit. That's what I meant to say, eat into your profit. And so you'd have to see if that's even going to work for you. So at the end of the day, I put them in one contract, but there is a benefit of doing 2 contracts. By doing one contract, it's very simple. If you pull up that contract to purchase, all you have to do is add additional address lines, add additional legal description lines, and then total up the price and put it in. And that's it. Okay. So, obviously any other thing that you agree to, like a shed comes with this property, but it doesn't come with that property. Of course, you would add in those things into the agreement. So if you could keep it simple for you and the seller and sell it as one contract. I know that was a long explanation, but there's good and bad things with both.
All righty. Next question from Sean. It's a general question. What exit strategy would you use when dealing with a property that's upside down?
Well, generally, when we say exit strategy, it's usually this is what we're going to do with it after we acquire it. And being that it's upside down, this is going to limit the strategies to actually acquire it. So these are generally going to be short sales, unless, I've worked with properties where they're upside down like a few $1,000s, and I could actually work a lease option with that. But usually when they're upside down, they're 10, 50, $100,000 upside down. And that ultimately is going to be a short sale. Now, if you buy it as a short sale, you could use any one of the exit strategies to get rid of it because you're going to own it and do something with it.
Question from Lisa on seller financing. Hey there, should we be using DEALPro before we work in step 4? What strategy is DEALPro the best for? Thank you.
Yeah, so step 4 is really designed to what can I pay the seller, where DEALPro is going to analyze from start to finish, right? So if you wholesaling is a really good example, or if you're doing fix and flip, this is a really good example. So you just can't hypothetically put in this is what the seller would take as the asking price in DEALPro if you haven't really determined what you could pay for it. And that's what step 4 is about, is to actually figure out what could I pay the seller and then put in those prices and work it from there. The creative financing, you could just pretty much use DEALPro for that. It's best for all strategies: wholesaling, seller financing. If you're working a pre-foreclosure, which would be seller financing, you can add in some additional costs there. Fix and flip. Every strategy you can work within that one system. So just think of maybe step 4 as this is going to help you determine what can I pay the seller when it comes from a wholesaling or retailing, more of a cash offer. And then DEALPro is going to analyze that from start to finish. And also in step 4, you're going to be able to print out the offer letters based on the offer that you can present to the seller. Where in DEALPro, it's going to say, if I bought it this way and I sold it this way, here's how much money I'd make.
Which is a crucial number to look at as well.
Yeah. To me, you use both.
Yeah, use both.
Yeah.
All right, next question from Joseph, wholesaling. What lead types are best for wholesaling? Training states property type C are best to wholesale. Is there a price range or any other property specifics that I should focus on within the C market?
Yeah. So, hey, Joseph, and when we mention, I'll say the letter C, which is it that way or that way for you guys? We're actually referring to the type of neighborhood where you're going to find that medium home price, that home value. Of course, I like to go a little bit below that medium when I'm wholesaling, but that's kind of what we call the largest pool of sellers. That's where the largest pool of buyers are. That's the medium area, right? So you could go down in price, you could go up in price. It's going to limit both seller and buyer in most areas. Okay. So I like to target the vacant and absentee owners when I'm wholesaling outside of just driving around. And one of the cool things that, we were just talking about with this new release on the dashboard, you're going to be able to figure out where those actual areas are going to be for you. So that's going to make it so much easier. So think of C not as C property. It's more of a neighborhood where the home prices are in the middle. And then when wholesaling, I like to focus just below that price point. Not so far below where it's in a war zone, but in between the war zone and in the middle price point. And that would be the value of the property.
Sean, seller financing, wraparound versus sub two. Can you please explain the major difference between the two? I'm getting confused. I know both have an existing mortgage. Sub two, you get the deed. On the wrap, you don't. What else am I missing? Are you still doing a wraparound on a sub two? Hope I'm making sense, and thanks for taking my question.
Yeah, this is, this is a popular question, actually, because I can see why people get confused with this. So I thought what I would do is I took some time to try to break it down a little bit different, and then I'm going to use an example. And I hope that I don't lose anyone doing this, but I hope this really clarifies what these two things are, when they apply, and so forth. So, Bo, if you wouldn't mind, just go to the next screen. The very first thing I want to do, let's just define what each one of these things are. So sub two is just short for subject to existing financing. This is the language, just language you put in the agreement, basically indicating that you're taking ownership of the property subject to any existing financing. So as you said in your question, you understand that these have existing financing. So anytime you're getting any kind of seller finance, when the seller has a mortgage on it, you always use this clause. It's like, I'm promising to, make the payments, but if I don't, oh, well, that's your problem type of thing. I said it a little bit nicer here. You make no promises to either the lender or seller about assuming the existing debt. So we're basically making the payments on behalf of the owner, we'll just say. So this is a good example. Let's say, and this is just an example, the seller's existing mortgage balance is $200,000 and the seller is selling it at what they owe. Of course, you're always going to put this clause in there, but it is not a contract. It's not something physical, tangible. It's a statement. And even the HUD-1 statements and a closing settlement. So you are agreeing to pay the existing balance, but you're not assuming the loan or taking any liability of doing so. If you obviously stop making payments on the owner's behalf, then of course the bank would foreclose on the owner. Okay. Yes, you do get the deed with seller financing. The only way you would never get the deed with seller financing is if you did what's called a contract for deed, which we really don't do anymore. The next slide, Bo, let's talk about a wrap. Okay, because to me, this might be a little more confusing, is this part. This is the paperwork you're going to use to create an additional mortgage. Kind of think of it like a second mortgage, we'll just say. You're going to set the terms of this, what we'll call wrap, price, interest, and so forth. So if you look at this little image that I created today, you have this small square, that's the seller's existing mortgage of 200, and then you're going to create a big note for 250. Okay, so within that 250 is the 200 from the original mortgage on the property. So it's not 200 plus 250, now we're at 450. Okay, so basically in this example, the seller is going to make 50 grand off of you. Okay, outside of any interest and so forth. Okay. Of course, if there's a mortgage, we always add the subject to existing financing clause. We're going to do that regardless, no matter, but it's a clause. It's not something that we recreate over here. And yes, you do get the deed. Now, what I want to do is actually just kind of run through an example with you and see if this starts to make sense, not just for, not for Sean, but for really everyone. So if we look at the left-hand side, the balance of the loan is 200. Interest rate, we'll say the owner's interest rate is 4%, brings a monthly payment. We'll say tax insurance. They have 20 years left on the loan. We come in and we create, they sell it, seller finance, and we agree to pay somebody $250,000 for the house, and we would only pay the $250,000 assuming we know that it's either worth more than $250,000, we're going to make money doing something else. I just want you to focus on the investor and the seller here for a second. The seller wants $10,000 down. We're going to finance that at 6%. That would be our monthly payment. The taxes and insurance would just carry over. And then the seller says, look, I'm not going to finance it forever, but I'll amortize the payments for 30 years. So the term on here would be for 5 years. Now, if we go to the next screen or the next thing. So in this example, we can go back, Bo. The seller's going to cash flow $333 a month. And also keep in mind, because he deeded the property over, the seller has no maintenance costs or repairs because they don't own it that way anymore. So this is very attractive to the seller. And because, maintenance costs and repairs could add up on a property, but it's also the interest they're going to make doing this transaction. I'm going to show you how that all comes to play here. Now we could go to the next screen. So in 5 years, okay, so the investor's got 5 years to do so, come up with the balance. So the seller's balance, I amortize that out, their loan, it comes out to $180,000, where the investor's balance in 5 years comes out to $220,000. If you click it one more time, Bo, at this point, you either have to sell the property or refinance it or pay the seller in cash the $180,000. Okay, when you do this, you're going to pay off the seller's mortgage on it, which is the $180,000. Okay, so the seller's going to make some profits doing it this way. So the first profit center would be the down payment that they collected in the beginning. The next profit center is the $333.54 times 60 months. That's another $20,000. And then the difference between what the payoff is with the investor and seller and what they have to pay the bank off. Okay. And the title company will handle all of this. It's not like you give them a check for $220 and hope that the seller pays the mortgage. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So just on the sales price, the $39,494. So a total profit would be $69,500 for the seller. Okay. So what we did here is we took a property that the owner was willing to sell or finance. We did a wraparound mortgage because we're paying more than what they owe. That's when you're going to use a wrap. All seller financing with mortgages already on the property always has a subject to existing finance clause in it. And our goal now is, what are we going to do with the property? Maybe we rented it out for the 5 years. Okay. I don't even have to wait the 5 years as the investor. I could have cashed them out sooner. Maybe I fixed it up. Maybe it was worth $350,000. The bottom line is when, the question is, what is that sub to versus a wrap, and when do they come into play? And I was just hoping maybe explaining it this way will start to make sense. And I know going through some of these numbers, some people may be even more confused, but hopefully you got it.
Well, and the confusing thing I think for him initially was, when do you actually get the deed? We get the deed in both. So
yes. Otherwise, you would be doing a contract for deed, which is like a car. You make payments on the car, but you don't get the title to the car until you pay it off. Right? So maybe look at it that way. Okay.
Okay. A rat, hopefully I didn't murder your name there, general question, says, hi, Chris and Bo, I have 2 questions. The first question is, if you call the prospect and they ask from, where did you get my number, what is the best answer? So I'm going to jump in here, Chris, because the best answer is it's public information, but then you want to steer them away from that because, you just want to say something like, are you interested in selling your property? I actually had this happen to me. I was doing a lease option deal. There was a house, a few houses down, had a for sale sign forever in the yard. So I went in, I skip traced the owner, found it, called his cell phone number, And he was walking through the airport and he asked me that question, how'd you get my number? It's pretty much exactly what I said. And then of course, the next thing I know, we're standing at his property and we're talking about a seller finance deal. So, if this is a deal that's actually house that's vacant or something like that, these people are wanting to sell these houses. I just steer them away from the fact that, how I got their number. And the second question he has is, in a lease option or seller finance deal, do we need to tell the seller that we're going to find a tenant buyer or a buyer, and basically that will be the middleman in this transaction? So yes, I would say be honest and upfront. I've had sellers that were a little skeptical at first and almost didn't want to do like a lease option with me. My response was pretty simple. And I even said one time, I was like, well, look, I have the perfect person that's looking for this situation that I think would be very interested in your home. And, et cetera. And I had this conversation, and really my explanation is what really got them interested and made all the difference in the world. And most of the time I find that what I'm really doing is I'm educating the seller on what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to sell them into this lease option or seller finance strategy. I'm really more educating about what I do as a business and how I'm going to help not only them, but also the clients that I serve. So yes, just be honest and upfront.
I struggle with that in the beginning. I was like, I don't know, should I tell them like somebody else because they're buying into me? But I went so many different directions. I tried this way, try it that way, and I found out, if you're just honest with people, keep in mind it's a business for you, right? So
Right.
it works so much better when you're just straightforward and upfront.
Absolutely. Aaron, lease options. Hi, Bo and Chris. My name is Aaron from Houston, Texas, and I'm starting again in real estate. But this time I only want to start by doing lease option purchase. But here in Texas, I can only do lease option assignments. Can either one of you respond in more detail? How would I start marketing to these sellers and tenant buyers and the paperwork, etc.? And what to say to both? In COVID, not sure how to start the process. Thank you guys both for doing a marvelous job. Stay safe for you and your families.
Yeah. Hey, Aaron. Now my personal thoughts is I would stick with wholesaling and seller finance in Texas, but that's just my personal, because you could seller finance it and then turn around and lease option it. Problem in Texas is you can't stay in the middle. So that's the biggest thing, because you don't have what's called fee simple in Texas when you're staying in the middle. Because when you're a middle person in a transaction like that, there's a seller and then you act as the seller and then there's a buyer. And that's where Texas really becomes a problem with those. Now, obviously you can, start marketing absentee owners. If you're just looking to do assignments on those lease options, you can really assign anything. Just look at it that way. You can assign a seller finance. You can assign a pre-foreclosure. You can assign a lease option. So we're going to really approach this as same as we would approach anything. Now, I would target the middle and above marketplace in Houston. You don't really work with homes that need work. It might need a little lipstick, but they're livable. So, obviously, expired listings is another really good one to start marketing, because if they haven't sold, this could be a great alternative for the owner is to do a lease option. You structure the deal and then you assign that over to start building your buyers list. And you could use the lease option contract that we have in REIPro, and then use the assignment of contract in there as well. So, you're not doing nothing more than putting it under contract on a lease option and then finding a buyer and assigning that over for a fee. So it's not any difficult than anything else. It's just kind of taking two different strategies and putting them together. It's fairly simple, but you do want to really target. I think the most important thing out of here is target nicer properties. Don't target properties that are in bad condition.
Question from Carl, general question. When wholesaling, how do you get a contract for the deal and how to lock it in?
Yeah, this one's pretty simple, Carl. Number one, use the contract to purchase if it's just a general wholesale, retail type of job or deal. But as soon as the seller signs the deal, that's locked in. I would take it a step further and do what's called file an affidavit of memorandum, which is in step 6 of a property. So if you go and print that out, so that's going to protect you from the seller going around your back and trying to do a deal with somebody else while you have this house under contract. So simply by the seller signing the agreement, that's what we call that equitable interest in the deal. Okay. And that gives us the right to assign or sell. But more importantly, the seller can't back out. If they back out, it's breach of contract, and you could actually sue them for that. Where from the buyer's side of it, of course, we have the right language in the contract of purchase that you can back out of that deal. So that's it. And I would take it a step further and use the affidavit so the seller doesn't go around your back and try to sell to someone else. And there's videos and stuff on that step as well.
Yep. Adrian, how do you respond to a seller who asks if you're just going to provide a lowball offer right when you get them on the phone?
You know, I've never had a seller ask me that before. I am just kidding. Right. So, you know, obviously people do, you know, hey, they get tired of listening to people that's not going to pay what they want. Right. And they're kind of interested, but what are you going to do? Don't lowball me. Otherwise this conversation's over. Right. You know, and I think that's what really got me to understand some of the other strategies. So if I were to do a lease option, actually I could pay you up to full price. So, and I think that's kind of your big comeback here is, hey, we could pay full price depending on the, you know, the condition of the property and what works for you. We're not those typical investors that's just going to lowball you. So then I want to shift gears and just say, hey, could you tell me a little bit about the property? So I'm going to get the point across. So I'm going to go, actually, we could pay up to full price depending on the condition of the property and your situation. You know, we're not the typical investors that just come in and lowball you. But could you tell me a little bit about the property and see if maybe it fits my buying criteria? So what I do is kind of answer it. That's a great thing. Like I'll do I don't know what they call it. Like I continue the sentence. Like I'm going to answer it and then I shift gears and I grab their attention. And I always grab their attention somewhere else by asking a question. And that's just something I guess I do subconsciously now. But that was something that I had to learn was answer the question. Too many people, what they do is they elaborate. And when they start elaborating on trying to defend themselves because they're questioning you about making a lowball offer, they're not going to want to talk to you anymore. And I also believe is saying it firm, right? Not mean, but just say it firm. And that will help you out tremendously.
Jennifer, a marketing question. What website and phones tie into REIPro do you recommend? So good question. A lot of people may not know, but you can connect almost any website or phone calling system to REIPro. Now we use a third party, it's called Zapier. And there are many, many, many thousands of companies that you probably use these apps every day. And it's a platform like Zapier that kind of allows all of us to connect and talk to each other. So for example, if you had a website that was built by you or a friend just in a WordPress or Wix or GoDaddy, or maybe even if you had a professional website done, all of these platforms have a component that will connect to Zapier. And then of course, Zapier connects to us. So we can feed in a potential buyer, a potential seller, lead coming in. And same thing's true CallRail or any of the phone systems. It depends on what the capability of the phone system that you're picking and what it actually allows you to do. But that's what Zapier is for. It helps all of us communicate. Now, if website specific, if you out there, if you have a carrot.com website, we have a direct integration with them. There would be no need to go through the third party. We built that years ago. We know the owner, great company, and we have a direct integration with them, and it'll feed in your seller leads and everything straight into REIPro. But good question. Alan, Seller Finance. Good evening, Bo and Chris. Hope all is well. My question relates to title insurance. I have heard it can be difficult to obtain properties structured with seller finance. Also, in the event of a full replacement claim, such as a fire or even an injury claim on the homeowners, who is responsible for the communication with the insurance company? And how should benefits be distributed or realized? There could be many answers for different deal strategies. Thanks for all you do. And just curious, what kind of projects does a veteran Air Force mechanic have in his workshop? Possibly a functional scaled down F-22 one-seater?
Wouldn't that be really cool?
Yeah.
Woo. Um, Hey, Alan, actually, I've never encountered a title company not insuring a home's title. Even seller finance, they don't really, if you are having a problem with a title company that won't do it from a seller finance, it's probably for a different reason than that. I would talk to your attorney or closing attorney and run everything through them so they could do the title search and so on. And kind of like I said before with the insurance, the easiest, most simplest way that you can do this from, a fire or something like that is just be added on to the current owner's policy. If you want to just keep it simple, especially with pre-foreclosure, I would do that every time. But if you're going to hold on to the property long term, then obviously we'd need to get additional insurance on that. But again, a lot of these insurance and taxes are included with a homeowner's mortgage payment. Obviously, if there's no mortgage on it, then that's the easiest way to do a seller finance. So hopefully, just going back to that very first question, as far as the insurance, as far as what do I have in my workshop? I don't have a scaled down F-22, but that would be
Oh, shucks, Chris.
that would be something. But I do have a two-seater, but it doesn't have wings, but it goes pretty fast. So that's the fun thing that I do.
Doesn't fly then necessarily, is what you're saying.
No, it doesn't
Off the
fly.
ground.
No, unfortunately, it flies on the road, but that's about it.
Oh, question from Jennifer on marketing. When using LISTMaid, it comes back as a vacant undeliverable. After correcting the address, it still says this instead of address corrected. How do I override this to put it back into my marketing campaigns? We know, Jennifer, actually in the release that's about to come up, when you correct that address, it actually does say address corrected, but you're correct. It doesn't actually change it from there. What the intent was with LISTMaid, when you see that address or vacant undeliverable or address correction, go ahead and correct the address and then select the little checkbox next to the property. And then there's a bulk actions button, click that. And then you can add this property to the same campaign that it came from, or even a different campaign. We wanted you to have that flexibility. A lot of people run it through LISTMaid. They get, they move them over here to a separate list. They go ahead and mail out their mailers with what was a cleaned version there. Then they go back and spend some time correcting those addresses, then move those over into a different campaign and work that as a separate process. So that's why it gets separated that way. But yep, actually in the new version, it will say address corrected once you actually mark that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess that was the last question. A lot of people I see over here in the chat and always asking about getting more help personally. We do some coaching. Chris is a fantastic coach. If a lot of you don't know, he was actually my coach in 2008. That's how I got started in real estate. And next thing you know, here we are, business partners. But right there on the screen, it's coaching@myreipro.com. Feel free to send us an email there, and Chris will personally respond to that.
Yep. All right.
Now, I know I have seen some questions in the chat window, but I see a lot of stuff in the chat and I'm responding to people. I don't want to miss your question. If you have a question and you happen to put it in the chat window, please do me a favor and put it in the Q&A box because that's what I try to operate off when we do these live questions.
Yeah, we had a lot of seller finance questions
We
tonight.
did have a lot of seller finance questions tonight.
But that's the beauty why we do this. Periodically, we want to do this to help you guys and be the best you can be and get those answers. Because I know sometimes it's hard to go online and try to figure this out, and you listen to 10 different people and they're saying the same thing but 10 different ways, and it becomes even more confusing. And I think it's good to get on these and you just learn, especially when you go back through the replay. Always say go through it like 3 times, because there's so many things that you'll pick up each and every time you go back through it. And at the end of the day, this is about knowledge, right? We got to get the education, get the knowledge so we can do our job the best that we can do. So, all right.
So here we go with some questions. I think Brad, he was the first one, jumped in right there at the beginning, came back and said, you've already answered it, but just, I want to put it out there for anybody else that might have missed it. Want to know, will you be able to search by the owner's name? The answer is yes. We still have that capability. It's in that global search box. If you type for that specific search to narrow this down, if you started typing John Smith, could you imagine how many John Smith own property in the entire United States? So for that one, you'll need to change it from all to owner search, because we're going to say, okay, what state and county, are you wanting to try to narrow this down to? Just be too many results that would try to come back.
Yeah, and you could do that today under the quick lookup.
Correct. And then as April 1st, it'll be on the global search at the top.
Yep.
All right. What can an agent do for a wholesaler? Are they limited by their brokerage bylaws and professional ethics to do something? If so, what are some examples of these things from your experience? I am asking to understand what to ask an agent to do for me.
The hardest thing is actually the compensation for the realtor. Because if you're just assigning it, she's never I say she or he is never actually representing. And it's against the law for you to pay write a check or do something. Only realtors can pay other realtors those things. You can't wash their car for them, technically. So from just a wholesaling point of view, I think you use it more of a networking tool, because they might know the areas a little bit better than you. And that's where you can really gain the knowledge. Also, they have power team members that they can introduce you to. So although they may not help you with that 1 or 2 wholesale deals, you might be doing some other deals where maybe they could represent you on selling one of your properties. If you were to, do a fix and flip, they could definitely benefit that way. But just straight wholesaling, the problem is how they get paid. And legally, you're not supposed to pay them without, them going through red tape. And I mean, they're putting their license on the line if they took anything from you in that capacity. So I don't know if those are some good tips, but hopefully that helped out.
Is wholesaling commercial land the same as wholesaling homes?
Wholesaling, we'll call it wholesaling real estate, because it really doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's real estate. Land, commercial land, a mobile home, single family home, a condo, an apartment complex. This is all real estate.
Does REIPro establish the framework for a deal analysis for beginners? Do we need to do any extra work outside of plugging information into the software? You kind of touched on this, but I need to understand if we should purchase this before we get started or after. Not sure.
You're not going to have to do anything outside of that. I'm not sure that the last part of that, obviously a lot of people think, hey, I don't need this until I find a deal to actually go through, which that's backwards for me. It's like, I don't know how you find the deal and get through the deal and pull the information without it. And that's kind of what we built REIPro from the very beginning, is you need to know, not this person asked, but just people in general, what to do next. And I think a lot of people that don't have access to the information and the tools, that you're going to need. Not only does it come with the basic tools, but all those advanced tools that you're going to need as well to get through the deal. But you're not going to have to analyze anything outside of that one DEALPro calculator. Like that is the end of the analysis part.
Sean, are you guys planning on adding more filter options to the software so we're able to stack?
Ooh.
I think he's probably referring to LEADPro. You know, Sean, Chris mentioned this earlier. This is kind of a phase one, because we already are working on phase two, and what you're specifically asking for is coming in phase two. I can't give you the exact time we're going to release it. We had to get through this phase one. We're using a lot of newer technologies under the hood that's going to allow us to do some really awesome things coming up over the rest of this year. But to your point, are we adding more filters? Yes, we're also adding some things besides just filters. It's going to be really, really cool. So can't tell you anything right now because don't want to spoil the beans or anything like that. So,
but it's coming.
But it's coming.
But it's coming. That's for sure.
Brad, if I was going to sell or finance a property to a new buyer, would a contract for deed be appropriate so that I retain the deed?
Well,
now that's going to come up on a question. Well, I'd rather I want to retain the deed now. Why would I even want to do it otherwise?
Yeah. So from a seller's point of view, you don't want to give the deed away. From a buyer's point of view, you want the deed, right? So yeah, I mean, the issue that, I think contract for deeds have is it's almost like old technology. Like this was an old school thing that we did years ago, but it's like a glorified lease option structured in a seller finance kind of way. That's what a contract for deed is. So, I think the question is disclose that you have good title to the property. Okay. I think that's a huge one. Where people got in trouble with contract for deeds is when you'd put an investor in the middle of the deal, and to find out that the title was so bad and they felt like the buyers were never actually going to execute all the way through the end of the deal. And I remember this one couple, it was in California, that actually was ready to close on the deal to find out that there were so many issues, and they went back and sued the investor for all the money that they paid. And it was a nightmare because contract for deeds is kind of that old way of doing it, but it does protect you if you were going to do it, because you don't really want to give away the deed. You could do a lease option instead, but seller finance, I mean, people do it, contract for deeds, but it would definitely secure that one thing. Just don't get in the middle of these contract for deeds. That's the big one.
Yeah, I just got there doing a seller finance deal, Chris, and my attorney that drew up all that paperwork, we were talking about the contract for deed. And this would be a house that I actually own, so I wouldn't have been in the middle anyway. And he's done them. He prefers to keep it clean and simple. He said a lot of times I've seen contract for deeds go sideways, and it's just a lot cleaner if it's just a straight seller finance. That's the way he prefers to do it.
Yeah, a lot of attorneys wouldn't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, at the end of the day.
Okay. Hi again. I am in New Jersey. I can't find an attorney who has done seller finance or lease option deals. It seems they are scared to do it. If you have any members from New Jersey, how can we be connected? Maybe they can refer me to someone.
See, I told you, not many attorneys really know this. I know that sounds crazy, but what we do, I would say, is not common. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it if it were. And so attorneys generally don't study that part of the law a lot. It's just, traditional sale, you got a seller, you got a buyer, you're doing a deed, there's a closing, there's a title company, blah, blah, blah. And when you come up with these creative ways to do things, some attorneys don't. So where can you go is the question, right? So we're pretty good friends with the South Jersey REIA, and was it Cherry Hill? Cherry Hill.
Yeah, there's Cherry Hill.
I think it's in Cherry Hill, and they also up in Princeton they have another satellite REIA there. Those are the people you'd want to connect with and network with, and they're going to be able to tell you who they use. What are the good attorneys that understand the creative, the seller financing portion of it, the lease option portion of it, and so on.
Yep.
So South Jersey REIA.
South Jersey REIA.
Yep. Tom runs it.
Yep. Let's see. Gustavo, using the lead generation part of REIPro, when a property is owned by a corporation, is there a way to have the owners of the corporation listed as well? That way they can be easily skip traced. Well, all this information is fed in from tax assessors and recorder offices, and the actual owner of record is the corporation. So we do not have direct access who the underlying owners are that formed the corporation. Now, what I do in those situations, and I just go out to the Secretary of State business search, and I can look at what was actually set up. I can find the name, and then I go skip trace from there. Even if it was a registered agent, I can find that, and then I can get to who I need to speak with. So, but more from an automated standpoint, listing who owns the corporation, we just unfortunately are limited on that, and almost everybody on the planet would be. So you'd have to get back to the skip trace through the Secretary of State. Nikki, what does it mean when the foreclosure auction says canceled by court order or canceled by county?
Yeah, well, a lot of them have been just because of the whole forbearance and mostly FHA stuff. But there could be some local county stuff that, it could be as simple as they don't have enough employees anymore, the funding. And I mean, there could be other avenues outside of just the banks postponing stuff. Some areas also are going to some online pieces as well, because they don't want a bunch of people showing up at the courthouse steps on an auction day. And then certain cities, depending on where you live, you can't even do that to begin with. So I guess depending on where you live, you might see those things. But that's only assuming you want to go and buy a property at auction. And a lot of these banks now are using third-party companies to run the auctions anyways. So, I don't buy property at auction. I try to get it before the auction and work with the owner that's in that pre-foreclosure state.
I see a property listed by a realtor. How could I get access to this property as an investor for a flip in Illinois?
Well, you could contact the realtor. You probably, have I gone around a realtor's back before? Absolutely. But sometimes you call the owner, they're like, talk to the realtor. I'm not telling you anything, so obviously the seller's paying the commission on it. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. But contact the realtor, or if you have a realtor in that area, obviously, I always looked at they're free. So why wouldn't you use them, in that particular fix and flip strategy, because the seller's ultimately paying their fee anyways. But just call them, communicate with them.
Gustavo, can you put the exact language for the sub-2 clause?
It's subject to existing financing. People abbreviate it by putting sub and then the number 2.
One more question from A-Rad.
That's all you got to put.
Yeah, that's it. Subject to existing financing. Yeah.
You look, and if you go look at a HUD-1 settlement statement, it said loans taking subject to existing finance. So it's common verbiage, but I think a lot of people, investors online that were trying to promote a video or trying to promote something, it started abbreviating. So it's like this new cool thing. No, it's not. It's a statement. Then people say, well, I thought it was an agreement or something. No, it's not. So it's to keep it simple.
When can we look for land in REIPro? You do that right now.
Yep, you can actually do it now.
Yep. Go into LeadPro, run a search for your area, and then there'll be a little drop down on the filter on the side on the property types. You'll see residential and commercial. Expand those down, and you will see check boxes that you can turn on or off depending on what you're looking for, from a single family home to a condo, multifamily, as well as there'll be vacant or land in there as well.
Yeah, and actually, we've been talking about that, kind of bringing it to the forefront so people, find it a little bit easier. Land's been kind of like a popular thing for a while now, and that's kind of in our suggestion of moving it to the forefront when we rebuild our lead generation. Right now, it's called LeadPro. We're going to move forward to just the term lead generation. But when we get to that phase 2 of REIPro, it's going to be more obvious.
I think we've already answered this, but just in case somebody missed it, Carl, how do we get the contract and lock it in when wholesaling? Download the contract to purchase. You can do it from the business office tools, or you can also do that in one of the steps. I think it's step 5. You can do it there as well.
Yeah, if you pull up one of your saved properties, scroll down to where you see step 5, it'll say contracts, and then it'll list out the contracts, and you'll see the contract to purchase, and you can download it.
Nevi, how do you keep your buyers organized so that you know what buyers to contact for certain properties, since so many buyers have so many requirements on where they purchase their types of houses?
If it's a lease option buyer, like, generally, I don't really build like a big buyers list unless it's like, if I'm wholesaling, I want to have my list of investors so I can do that too. The problem with, I would say, almost every other kind of buyer is that you get a buyer, and usually when a buyer is giving you information, it's because they're looking in the very near future, like if not next month or next week. So I usually, when I get the property, it's ready to go, or I've got it under contract, then I really advertise the specifics to look for those buyers. And because of that property, I could build more buyers, but I don't really actively market buyers just to build a buyer's list. I let my properties build the buyer's list for me. So obviously saving them in REIPro is a way of organizing all that. And you can label what kind of buyer this is in REIPro as well. So when you just say, hey, I want to go find my lease option buyers, you can sort them out in REIPro right now.
Bob, is the 70% rule for wholesaling the only percent formula? Figure you'd have fun with that one.
Oh gosh. No, don't even think of 70%. Don't think of 60%. If you had to put a general rule of thumb, I go 65%, but that's not even accurate. When you go through the all cash offer formula in step 4 of any property that you have saved to the system, it will tell you what that percentage is going to be without you telling the system, I'm going to buy it at this certain percentage. So a lot of times we have to buy the house at 46% because that's how the numbers came out. Sometimes it'll be 65%. But if it goes above 65%, then I may be changing the strategy. That might make more sense, because then I have to really lowball the seller, and I don't want to do it from that point of view. And I can't justify why I'm paying a low ball offer there. So we don't ever look at it. It's the exact opposite. I say, okay, what's the ARV? What are the repairs? What are all the costs associated with buying and selling this house? How am I profiting from this deal? Hit calculate, and then it says, that's your offer. That offer, by the way, is X percentage of the ARV. And that changes for every single property. So there's no flat guideline that says, oh no, just take 70%. Or 70% minus this or that. You really do need to fill in the numbers for every individual property, and that will tell you what the percentage is versus me telling the system what the percentage should be.
Brad, follow up to the question that I asked at the beginning about the new search. Can we search marketing campaigns by seller's name? So let's say I want to know what postcard they received. Sometimes I have trouble finding a property in a campaign by the street address. Brad, I do believe you can search, because now that it's a global search, you can start typing in a name, because we're looking across buyers, we're looking across your contacts. I believe we can look across the seller, or a seller's name within inside of one of your campaigns. So I believe that is the case, but I will make sure. Sammy, I need a little technical support. Do I need to call the office? Because since the system changed at the beginning of the year, I haven't been able to sign in. I think the problem is I signed in on my cell phone, but a little while later, I started using the laptop, to which I only use for my LLC. And oh, thanks, I finally got an email today in my company email. So a couple of things there, Sammy. Yeah, look, reach out to the office. I'm not sure about what change you're referring to, but whether you're on a cell phone or you're on a laptop, you should not have any problem signing in either way. I don't know if you've tried to have multiple accounts. That could be part of it. Or maybe one of your devices has memorized an old password. Definitely reach out to our customer support. That's what they're there for, and they can help you. If you're still on, I'd just be curious, what time of the day did you get that email? Because I think you might have been one of the person. I never really have gotten an email from you. So if you got an email from us today, I'd love to know what time. We've been doing some testing behind the scenes that would just help me out. Tara Lynn, how to change the address on a comp screen while checking for new properties? I'm not real sure. You don't really change the address. Normally, you have a property that you're doing your due diligence on. You're wanting to run comparable sales on that specific property. So you're looking at all the properties around it that has sold with that criteria. So you're not really changing the address at the same time.
You'd have to go to the next property and do it over again.
Okay. Gustavo, is there a way to search for mobile home parks nationwide?
You know, a lot of recorders offices don't call it that.
Right.
So that part in itself makes it already difficult to figure that out. Because, you know, a lot of mobile homes, they can't even be. There's too many cases where somebody buys some land and then they put some mobile homes on, and yeah, I think that's going to be, I'm looking at it from a recorder's point of view, because I don't think they actually label land that way. But I don't know. I would probably Google that. I don't know how the recorder's office actually looks at it from a mobile home park that's established mobile home park. Now, I know I could go to my realtor and say, hey, are there any for sale or any that you're aware of? And that could be an MLS search because they literally label it that way. But from a data point of view, I'm not even sure if they label it that way. I haven't seen one labeled that way. Doesn't mean there's not, but.
Does REIPro have a repair sheet that factors into the offer analysis?
Yeah, so that's step 3. And that's kind of the beauty of the steps, right? So we'll start with step 1. We have a property. Step 2, we need to talk to somebody or send direct mail. Once I go look at the property, I'm going to move to step 3. You're going to be able to total up all of your repair cost for all the different rooms that you have within that house. You can add additional rooms as well. And then once you total that up, that number is going to total and move over into step 4, which is going to be the offer side of it. And if you do it old school, then you can print out a piece of paper. You'd have to manually put the total in, but.
Hey, Sammy, are you, what time zone are you in? Sorry, I'm just kind of throwing that one out there. Hi guys, any advice on what strategy works best for sale by owner properties?
Usually a lease option.
Thanks for answering my questions. And when can we search for tax delinquent properties in REIPro?
Yeah, we haven't really gone down that road. And here's the reason. We can't find a legitimate company from a nationwide standpoint that can provide all of those tax liens. Doesn't mean that they're not out there. We just can't seem to find one that makes sense for our users, that is going to be accurate in a lot of areas, just because we're so nationwide on that. There are, to me, it's kind of like a localized thing where you can probably get those lists down at the county and then just import it into REIPro, so you have all the information from that point of view. That's the way I would go about. I know there may be some companies that offer it. I know a couple of our competitors that offer it. We just don't buy into the quality of it. So that's a big reason for us.
And we definitely have to do everything on a nationwide scale. I've seen some that were good in one little area, one little pocket. And I don't want to just bring in that one thing for those, users that are there. I want to bring it in on a national scale and have that quality that's got to pass our tests. So, well, I believe that wraps up the questions.
Good questions tonight. So another good one. I guess they're all good, right? I mean, every question's good, but there are some really detailed, I would say advanced. There's some advanced investors on the call, because those are some really specific advanced questions, I would say. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us, being a part of this. We'll be sending more information out as we get closer to April 1st, and some obviously videos and training and all that good stuff. And don't worry, all of your information that you have saved today will be carried over into the new version. And that's it. Have a wonderful.
Well, actually, you know what, Chris? I will say one quick thing. Yes, everything will be carried over. For anybody that we will be converting your old to-do list into the new calendar system. If you have not set your time zone where you currently are at, go to your account home area, go and right under your information, it'll say what time zone you're in. If it's not already chosen, please just go ahead and tell us. That'll just save, one quick step later when we may have to ask you what time zone you're in, so we can convert any of your calendar and to-do list reminder stuff. So do us a favor, go ahead and get that in there if you haven't already chosen it. Other than that, we will let you know when the next live Q&A is. Thank you guys for joining in live. We love it when you're live. We love these live questions.
Yeah, and thanks to Bobby for sharing that too. So, oh yeah, there we go. Awesome. Have a great week, and we'll be talking soon.